The protagonist lost his father early. His mother told him to be a shaman because he had the qualities of one. If he is not one, he will be in big trouble one day. He was forced to do all sorts of religious things, like poetry, magic, and bizarre things he had never heard of before. But he didn't accept it all and devoted himself to his studies. But after those years he died. It is due to an accident. He remembered his mother's warning, but he is more surprised by the fact that he was reborn. The next life mentioned by his mother is actually true. In a train station, a man boards the train. He enters the cabin and sees a man with gray hair. The young man greets him. The train then departs while the two are reading their own papers. The young man notices the news about the Civil War. He talks about the end of the war with relief. The man agrees. The young man introduces himself as Rudiger Chelsea, while the man introduces himself as Gerard. Gerard asks Rudiger if he is a noble. Rudiger is from a fallen one. Rudiger was just hired as a professor at Thurn Academy. Gerard is surprised and complimented for being young and talented. Rudiger tries to be humble, but Gerard tells him to be proud. Rudiger thanks him and changes the topic to the rumor about the wandering mercenary Machiavelli. Gerard's reaction is a bit tame, and he claims that it is just a rumor. But it is not, because Machiavelli was someone who was only searching for an object, and that is one of the names Gerard uses. Gerard tries to change topics, but he senses something. Rudiger asks what is wrong, and the train suddenly explodes. It was an ambush or robbery aimed at wealthy nobles. Because of the explosion, they concluded that there was a mage among the attackers. Gerard suggests hiding or escaping, and Rudiger offers to lead. They come out of their cabin, and a man suddenly crashes through the window. The man attacks, but Rudiger uses magic to fight back and knocks him down. Rudiger interrogates the man, but he simply laughs and shows that he has a timer bomb. Gerard shouts at Rudiger to dodge, but the bomb explodes. Gerard opens his eyes and sees no one in the hallway. Gerard then notices that his mask came off. He removes it and complains that he always encounters these kinds of situations. Our protagonist looks outside and wishes Rudiger's soul to be blessed. He noticed that this is not just done by common robbers. Just then, a carriage staff member appears and claims that he evacuates the passengers. Our protagonist pins the staff down and claims that he will not be tricked by their acting. He tries to bring out a knife, but our protagonist stops him. He grabs him up, and he hears something from the door. He immediately drops the staff and ducks to the ground. Armed terrorists appear, and our protagonist claims that he can't be killed. They try shooting at him, but the guns are not working. They just realize that he is a mage, but his magic was suddenly canceled by another mage on the side of the terrorists. He was suddenly surrounded. Our protagonist doesn't have a choice but to jump off the running train. They went to check on him. A dagger pierced the terrorist's head just as they thought he jumped. They are surprised that he is above a train running at high speed. They shoot at the roof, and our protagonist runs. They give chase and trigger a trap on the door left by our protagonist. The terrorist mage recognizes him as a mercenary rather than a mage. He realized that the train was cut off, and the rest of the train got away. Just when they planned to hunt him later, they sensed strong magical energy. They look back and see our protagonist cast a spell and fire at them. Only the mage was left, and he claims that he is just being patriotic. Our protagonist claims he is only acting in self-defense. He was thinking of running away at first, but because his face is seen, he has no choice but to kill them. Suddenly, the mage was split in half by ice magic. A woman appears and asks our protagonist if he is alright. She introduces herself as a member of the Cold Steel Knighthood. Cold Steel Knighthood easily overpowers and annihilates the terrorists. Their vice captain commends them. At the next station, passengers are assisted, and our protagonist remains. The Cold Steel Knighthood appears and introduces herself as Veronica DeVille. Suddenly, another person appears. A police officer will take over the investigation. He thanks the Knights, but they found something weird in the reports on how the train was easily taken over by the terrorists. They suspect that this is an inside job. Veronica tells our protagonist to answer honestly, but he feels like he is in deep trouble. There was nothing wrong with Gerard's identity when he purchased the ticket. But right now, he doesn't look like a man in his mid-40s. He might be hanged or tortured when they find out his real identity. It is impossible to escape from the police and Knights, especially the wicked-looking vice captain. He can be immediately killed. The police start to check his identity, and our protagonist shows his ticket number. They confirm 2 passengers and ask where the other one is. Our protagonist explains that he was blown away by an explosion. The officer doubts him, but the vice captain claims that he is not suspicious. She saw him fighting the terrorists, and the officer realized something. He assumes he is Rudiger. They are surprised about Rudiger's assignment on Thierry, and our protagonist looks precious right now in their eyes. Our protagonist then confirms that he is Rudiger Chelsea. After that, they apologize to Rudiger and offer to escort him, but he declined. He walks away and is able to escape. He apologized and thanked the real Rudiger. Just as he plans to hide, someone calls him. Wilfred, an employee at Thierry Academy, meets him and offers a ride to the academy. He didn't have a choice but to go with the flow. He is in trouble again and recognizes Wilfred as a knight. He'll be killed if he tries to escape. He thought that he might just assume the identity of Rudiger. They eventually arrived in Thierry. Wilfred immediately brings him to the Chancellor. She introduces herself as Elisa Willow. She is relieved that Rudiger is fine, and our protagonist is worried that he might be found out. But she just compliments his good looks and doesn't suspect a thing. He was given a 2-year teaching contract with a large monthly salary. He is worried about being found out, but has still accepted the terms of the contract. He just needs to survive for 2 years. That night, Rudiger rests in the mansion provided to him. He intends to keep using Rudiger Chelsea's identity. Based on the real Rudiger's letters, no one should be able to recognize him. A week passed by, and while relaxing at a cafe, a suspicious person approached him. Rudiger is surprised. He is asked why they can't contact them, and why the other members are worried. Rudiger confirms that this person is there for him. He continues the conversation, acting calm. She continues to talk about killing targets and traitors, and Rudiger realizes something. He acts authoritatively, acting like a higher-up, scaring the suspicious person. He continues to keep the act up and later walks away thinking that Rudiger is a dangerous person. Back in his mansion, he conducted more background checks on the real Rudiger. He just realized that Rudiger's background is the best way to gain trust. The letters are actually coded messages. He regrets using Rudiger's identity. His head hurts over the thought that a secret organization's executive was done in by mere terrorists. Whatever the case, he must not get caught by the Thierry Academy and the secret association. Based on what the suspicious person told him, there are different orders in the association, and he is part of the first order. The ideal situation for him now is to use Thierry to get rid of them. Classes in Thierry start, and the students talk about the new professor. They'd also talk about how the previous professor quit because he lost to a student. The door opens and Rudiger introduces himself as the new professor. He announces that he will teach actual battle usage of magic, and first years can join his class. One of the students doubts, but he just tells her to attend the next class to see. He also warns them that he will be strict with grades as an educator, but deep inside he wants them not to attend his class. No one raised more questions, and he abruptly ended the class. In the hallway, he was greeted by Selena, a new professor like him. She invites him for lunch. During lunchtime, new professors Bruno and Merolda also introduce themselves. Another new professor glares at him, and Merolda tells her that he is Chris Benamor, a noble unlike them. He then realizes that the other three are commoners, and there might be another First Order member among them. Chris leaves right away after seeing them and warns Rudiger not to act big. Rudiger assures the other that he is unaffected, and then they proceed to eat lunch. That night, a student spread positive news about Rudiger's class on a magic discussion board. The next day, Rudiger arrives at his classroom and is surprised by the insane number of students in the lecture hall. He thinks someone is screwing up his plans. He introduces himself again, and he will be teaching the overall process of manifestation. A student asks a question, and he gets mad. He threatens them with a point deduction if he is interrupted. He confirms that he will teach all 4 specializations. Flora thinks that Rudiger is exaggerating. He then proceeds to show a flame bolt that can be cast faster than the existing methods. Flora claims that it is nearly impossible to do that unless you use a scroll or another specific spell. Flora thought lowly of Rudiger. Students rush in with their questions, which Rudiger answers and explains clearly, but Flora refutes him. The other students talk about how Rudiger is now finished. Rudiger hears her out, and she claims that what he explained is impossible. Even geniuses couldn't do it. Rudiger refutes her, saying that it's not that they couldn't, but that they didn't. He explains further that magic has stagnated because people kept on following traditions and history, which science overtook. Rudiger points out that Flora is wrong because someone tried to improve magic before, and he is the first now. Flora got mad at his confidence. He asks Flora how one can cast Flame Bolt in a faster way. She explains that as your rank increases, your speed also improves. But Rudiger refutes him again. Flora claims she can cast it faster, and did it in 4.87 seconds, and Rudiger compliments her, but he still called it slow. He then shows how to use Flame Bolt, and the technique is completed in an instant. Flora doubts him, but he shows it again the second time. All the students are shocked that he cast it in 0.23 seconds. He used Flame Bolt, but the technique he used at the start was different. He assures them that he really used Flame Bolt, and that he only used a technique on top of another technique. He calls it source code, his unique technique. Rudiger calls the students close-minded, and because Flora interrupted him, she was given a penalty of 10 points. Flora frustratingly returns to her desk, but then Rudiger complimented her Flame Bolt, so he is giving her an additional 10 points. The students are relieved. Chiro worries, but Flora assures her that she is fine. Rudiger promises to teach the students source code if they do well. One student is impressed by him. Hours passed by and Rudiger ended the class. Students compliment him, and one noble student laughs at the commoners. The student looks around and realizes the noble is talking to him. He claims to be the son of Baron Felio. Another student appears and insults him. The noble tries to attack, but the other student threatens to try it, and Theron won't overlook it. Everyone is looking at them, and the noble runs away. Aiden thanks Leo, but Leo claims he was just disgusted at the noble acting arrogantly. The two then proceed to their alchemy class. Leo calls Aiden weird. He warns him about second-year students like Flora and the third princess, Arinder. As the two students walk away, another student looks suspiciously over them. Meanwhile, Rudiger is surprised by the positive reactions. He needs to think of more things to teach so he won't be found out. He walks into his office, and Chancellor Alyssa greets him. He asks why she is in his office, and she just answered that he is a precious professor of Theron, and that's why she needs to take care of him. He is more shocked at running into a ghost at night. She also mentions visiting all new professors, with Rudiger being the last. He is surprised, and he assumes that Alyssa is into him. He is worried that she is suspicious of him. She then compliments his teaching method and asks him to take care of some students. He asks her to have some tea, but Alyssa has also got work to do and bids him goodbye. On the other side of the door, Wilfred asks Alyssa if Rudiger is trustworthy. Did they already catch on to Rudiger's identity? If you want a part 2 of this manhwa, comment down below and make sure to like this video and subscribe. Until next time.